Section 3. The Human Factor. Introduction. The most challenging problem with human interstellar travel is the human part. I strongly believe that interstellar travel would have been a reality many decades ago if it wasn't for our recurring dream of taking ourselves along to the stars. Humans are demanding, delicate, unpredictable, and vulnerable living organisms that require too many resources for nurture. Humans need a constant supply of breathing air, massive amounts of water and food, in addition to the nagging requirements of space, socialization, and medical attention. All these needs require a stupendous amount of energy spent on infrastructure, payload to LEO, and unspeakable, extra, technical and material requirements. All these human-caused requirements add unwanted weight and bulk to the precious payload lifted via rocket, and add to the already critical mass to be propelled across the vast distances between the stars. Additionally, NASA's 5 hazards of human spaceflight not only apply for interstellar flight, but are exacerbated by at least multiple orders of magnitude. In the context of interstellar flight, suddenly, the seemingly solvable problems of radiation, gravity, isolation, and hazardous environments become almost hopeless enigmas. Forget the often portrayed ability of human suspended animation and the utilization of warp drives or wormholes. Sadly, Superman is not coming in the case of interstellar travel. These scenarios are, and will likely remain, the stuff of science fiction. Freezing humans like poultry meat or machines that generate artificial gravity, like if you're wearing magnetic shoes, are just comical jokes in scientific circles. And any other more realistic means to solve these problems remain, at best, undeveloped. Ultimately, to put it mildly, the many problems introduced by the human factor will be much more challenging in an interstellar mission. Putting aside the gargantuan technical hurdles with putting humans in pickle jars and shipping them off to the stars, and focusing on the actual challenges, we may here discuss these 5 hazards. So for now, let's ignore the fact that exclusively machine missions suddenly remove most barriers to interstellar travel. Again, it helps to look at these challenges by listing them as they relate to NASA's 5 hazards of spaceflight. Here, I will call them the 5 challenges of human interstellar travel, and they include radiation, gravity, isolation, distance from Earth, and closed hostile environments. Cosmic radiation becomes a tremendously bigger problem in interstellar flight. Due to the unimaginably longer travel periods, the blinding speeds likely required, and the distance to be traveled. These alone exacerbate the situation many-fold. The lack of gravity remains an issue for interstellar flight. Both radiation and gravity must be solved problems for the health of the human crew and their possible en route descendants. Our distance from Earth, the planet where our biology and psychology evolved, will be lost in the rear view. At this site, humans will necessarily change and begin to adapt to whatever environment they will inhabit for perhaps centuries. This change will depend on too many factors to list here. But one thing is certain, change will occur. And we should expect that not all changes will be advantageous. For example, initial changes may be unexpected and chaotic, even hostile. Some in the crew may respond to drastic changes with violence. If so, how will these cases be handled? Our ability to procreate in space is at best unknown, at worst is utterly unsafe and harmful for both the mother and the child. Our bodies don't like space, and of course, the lack of gravity and the hopeless lack of suitable air are punishing truths we must accept. I believe an Earth-like destination will be very hard to find within a few light years from Earth. The challenges with human isolation on a spacecraft remain thorny and unsolved problems. And of course, these become colossal problems for interstellar crews. Human psychology is quite fragile, and human interaction is volatile. In many instances, humans revert to jealousy, anger, hostility, envy, hatred, and other damaging behaviors. These are ingrained in us and are likely to remain part of our lives foreseeably. Curiously, life would probably be a boring stage without them. And to my knowledge, no human crew has been able to work peacefully and harmoniously for any space-related project for periods over 1 year. So the effects that closed environments will have on the human crew and the effects those humans will have on mission is at best not known. Further hurdles with interstellar travel involve agreements in human interaction. There may be many civic and ethical questions in an interstellar voyage, as it will likely be, or become, autonomous or sovereign. I believe interstellar voyages will likely, eventually, be independent from any nation on Earth. So, questions of the form of command or government will have to be answered. For example, which will be the encouraged or discouraged or dominant, cultural, social, or religious system? Will racial, ethnic, and behavioral differences be an issue? Also, there may be ethical problems with recruiting, education topics, among others, as there are currently on Earth. What should be the default spoken language on board? Who should be in management or command positions and why? Also, there may arise human factors that are damaging to command and hierarchies specific to long-duration space travel, causing turmoil or mutiny. At best, many decades into our future, and if all these problems are solved, we may have a shot at visiting another star system with humans on board. But things may be a lot different than what we would commonly expect. Humans may not be in charge, perhaps relegating or having been demoted to a position of mere spectators. Relics carried along on a trip designed and executed by ultra-advanced machines. Our past abilities long ago having been passed on to advanced systems. Other possibilities include traveling to the stars only as information. The fragility of human biology and psychology may be the things that keep us from traveling to other stars. But machines may be used to send our information to the stars in the form of nearly indestructible data, to be decoded at the destination by machines. Or humans may travel to the stars as DNA. And machines would grow humans at the destination, bypassing the need to nurture fully developed or developing human bodies. Ultimately, I believe our trip to the stars must start with a single question. Why? So, without further ado, here is my final chapter on this series, Challenges of Interstellar Travel, the Human Factor.
The Challenges of Interstellar Travel, the Human Factor. Any foray into space, especially into outer space, is a difficult and challenging undertaking, but the challenges multiply when you add humans to the mix to these space missions. Adding human crews to space missions multiply mission difficulties by orders of magnitude. More than we usually like to admit, the human body is a fragile and delicate organism that requires a lot of maintenance, a lot of care, a lot of technology working for its comfort, its well-being, and its upkeep. Just think of your last long trip or vacation or visit to a faraway place from home. The amount of supplies, resources, materials, luggage that you have to take with you to keep your comfort, keep your health, and maintain a routine when it comes to everything that you must do during the day, during your active hours, during sleep, etc. Also, think about the food and the water, liquids that you consume during that time, during the trip, the amount of food that you may take with you, and the amount of food that you may acquire or buy or purchase along the trip. Many of us may also need attention, such as social care, social attention, interaction with others. Also, we need activity when it comes to exercise, bodily activity, and also intellectual or brain activity. We need to keep busy to keep our mental and body health up. Many of us also need medical attention in the form of medicine, in the form of checkups and routine checkups of current health conditions, many times necessary for many people. Also, our mental health has many requirements. It needs socialization. It needs some sort of spirituality, hope, goals, purpose, explanations. It needs to explain to itself many things around them. It needs to justify actions, justify efforts. It needs to be satisfied with its lifestyle, its surroundings, the achievements that it has made. Our psychological health, it's a huge consumer of resources, energy. So we as humans require a tremendous amount of resources, energy, which comes in the form of bulk, weight, baggage. It takes up a lot of space, takes up a lot of energy again, a lot of resource in the form of funds or monetary funds, money, and also takes the support of other people, technology and systems and methods all around a single human being, let alone an entire group of humans, such as a space-based or space-bound crew of astronauts that would require even more resources than the average human here on Earth. Think of the long trip again that you were going to embark in here on Earth. You need to take all of the things, luggage, equipment, all of the, again, food, drink with you that you expect to use. And when we're talking about space-bound crews, these same resources are multiplied by many, many fold, because the trip times, expectation to be out in space is usually a lot longer than any trip here on Earth, especially when we talk about deep space travel. And unlike here on Earth, where you can also gather things from your surroundings as you go during your trip, for example, en route to your destination, and at your destination, you can also gather stuff that you might have forgotten, stuff that you may need that are extra, that you may have not thought of. And in space, this is utterly impossible. You cannot stop anywhere in space and gather up materials, gather up resources that you may have forgotten at Earth. You have to take every single thing you will need during your entire trip and stay at your destination and your way back. You must take all of those with you, again, for you, the human, and the human crew on that space mission. That is why the human factor is a very large challenge for any space mission, especially that of space missions to outer space, such as interstellar missions. So I will organize the challenges dealing with human factors on this program. I will list them and discuss each one of them. Of course, there are space challenges dealing with human factors that match the NASA's 5 hazards of human spaceflight that also apply to interstellar travel. These 5 hazards are the hazard of ionizing radiation, the hazard of gravity fields, the hazard of distance from Earth, the hazard of closed and hostile environments, and lastly, the hazard of isolation. All of these hazards pose problems to human health, human well-being. So from those, I will derive the many challenges that deal with the human factor for interstellar travel. So first, to define human factors. Human factors are just situations. A factor, it's a changing and evolving situation or occurrence, and it changes and evolves because that is the nature of humanity. We are very unpredictable in many ways. In some ways, we are a lot more predictable. Biologically, we have a lot of variation between people. We have even more variation psychologically between humans and people. And there are many health and whether it's biological health and psychological health, mental health challenges that are present here on Earth, let alone in trips to space away from Earth. These challenges will be magnitudes more severe and significant in long duration trips such as interstellar travel. And just to keep it in perspective, the distances that we are talking about here when talking about interstellar travel are
unimaginably
vast. They are almost unfathomable and well away, well removed from our everyday experience. Interstellar travel means traveling to other star systems away from our own solar system. The closest, of course, you may know that it's the Alpha Centauri star system, and that is 4.37, I believe 4.37 light years away. And as you may know, we are hopelessly incapable of reaching any degree of the speed of light at the moment. So the trip there would take close to several thousand years with current technology. So using current technology, we would be on a trip longer than perhaps written history. So to put it more in perspective, if you think of the Babylonians or Sumerians back several thousands of years ago, if they were to embark on a interstellar trip somehow, they would just now be close to the nearest star system in Alpha Centauri. And that is if they would be using current technology somehow. So given that scenario, it would be likely that we would not be even able to communicate with the crew that would be arriving at the Alpha Centauri system from those many thousands of years ago. At the very least, there would be a significant language barrier between the crew at Alpha Centauri and us here on Earth currently. Again, the nearest star system to our own solar system is the Alpha Centauri system, and it is about 4.4 light years away. That is 277,000 astronomical units, or AUs. Again, an AU is the average distance between the Earth and our Sun, or about 93 million miles. That is about 150 million kilometers. Also, to give you a bit more perspective, the farthest that a small human crew has traveled to outer space currently is the surface of the Moon. That is a significant but mere 384,000 kilometers away from Earth. And as you may know, it did take an international effort to put a few people on the surface of the Moon. So you can begin to appreciate the vast and enormous challenges that we may face to embark on a interstellar trip or mission, even to the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri. So to tackle the first challenge involving radiation, space radiation or ionizing radiation, as you may have learned from my previous discussions on space radiation from NASA's 5 hazards of spaceflight. Space radiation is among the most severe problems that we have for deep space flight or travel, because there's such a thing as ionizing radiation, basically a radiation type from space, either from other stars or from our own sun. So basically these are star-sourced or born particles, highly energetic particles that are traveling nearly at the speed of light at their atomic composition. Basically, their bare cores, their bare atoms, stripped of any electrons, are traveling. And these are from elements such as iron, gold, silver, boron. Just about every element on the periodic table are flying around in space. And especially hazardous are the heavy elements. Again, those with heavy cores or atomic centers that have many protons and neutrons again. And they wreak havoc when they collide with, for example, human cells, DNA, etc. They destroy those cells and DNA structures. And of course, that causes all kinds of issues, health issues, whether it's right away, whether it happens immediately, or it happens over time. This is something that is a huge problem for human health, because as it passes through the human body, these highly energetic particles collide and rip electrons out of the atoms of our own cells and any other material or compound that it may traverse. And these particles traverse just about every material known, since they are so small and they are traveling so fast. So that is probably the worst problem encountered when taking humans along in our space missions, because we need to worry about that, protect humans somehow from this space radiation, which, by the way, we have no effective and proven technologies to shield us from these particles. Yes, we do have components or methods or some technologies or materials. All of that, we have some materials that may block some of this radiation, but not entirely, not all. Especially when we consider our current limitations, technological limitations, such as our ability to put high payloads, high amounts of weights to space from Earth. It is very difficult to carry weight to space, very costly. So we are limited at the moment how much weight and space and size we can carry to space. So we cannot carry, for example, high amounts of water, which is a known filter or blocker of radiation. Not the entire amount of radiation, but a good portion to at least slow down the damage done by this ionizing radiation. Also, materials like lead, which are very heavy, as you may know, and again, also very harmful to human health. However, lead is effective in blocking at least a good percentage of the radiation that comes from space, but you would need a lot of it. You would need meters of the thing all around the spacecraft to significantly block a good portion of the radiation coming from all directions. I mean, these things are coming from all angles during spaceflight, not only in the direction opposite of travel, but from everywhere in space. So obviously, humans are a big complicating factor there for missions to interstellar space because of the radiation and the need to protect these humans from radiation, which is going to significantly complicate the mission and require energy and resources to that same mission. Shielding systems would have to be developed, built, most likely on Earth's orbit, since they would have to be very large, of colossal scales, kilometer scales, and these systems again may include passive systems, such as just systems that shield, that are static, that do not move, basically non-moving parts that are just there blocking, acting as a literal physical shield between you and the radiation in space. Again, using those materials and compounds that are known to shield some of the radiation. Or there may be active shields, such as magnetic, strong, very strong and large magnetic fields that more or less act like the magnetic field that we have on Earth, that deflects all of these particles, high energy, high flying, fast flying particles, before they reach our atmosphere or before they reach the surface of the Earth or us. But this is extremely difficult to do, since the energy requirements would be prohibitively enormous, and also the scale and the magnitude at which we need to produce and build and maintain these systems are just utterly out of our reach at the moment. Moving on to gravity. Gravity has debilitating effects on the human body, therefore causing problems dealing with human factors on any spaceflight, let alone interstellar missions to space. Gravity is a necessity. We need gravity to be healthy, to be happy, to survive. Our body has evolved exclusively to be healthy, to be happy, to be satisfied on Earth's gravity. We call it 1G, 1 Earth gravity. And anything outside of that, again, as I've mentioned, will be detrimental to our health and also to our mood, to our psychological health, not only our biological health. Our hearts, our circulatory system, our nervous system, our digestive system, just about every system that we have depends on gravity, with perhaps very few exceptions. And the way our blood flows through our veins, even the place where our hearts are a product of the many thousands, perhaps millions of years of evolution of life on Earth, from which we ourselves come from. So the minute we step off from the surface of the Earth, our bodies begin to suffer and decay, and in very major part because of the lower gravity out in space, what we call microgravity. During low gravity or no gravity, our bodies begin to shed bone mass, bone density, as well as muscle mass, and again our cardiovascular system begins to decay. The same with our vision. Our eyes the shape of its lens and the eyeball itself begin to deform, and there are other effects of gravity in our body and our brain. So gravity absolutely needs to be provided. Systems need to be in place that work to offset the effects of low gravity, or to provide gravity itself by artificial means. As of right now, the only system that I'm aware of that may provide gravity, or something that feels like gravity, is centrifugal force. But again, we are limited from this because of the sheer scale of the structures required to comfortably and safely provide artificial gravity or centrifugal force gravity. These structures would have to be enormous in dimensions, more in the kilometer scale. They would have to be kilometers in diameter. These most likely circular structures or torus, donut-shaped structures, where we would be inhabiting the actual donut tube. We would be pretty much standing on its outer surface as it spins around. It would have to be spun continuously throughout the trip, and again, such construction is, as of now, out of reach for an interstellar trip. So we would have to basically be able to build those types of ships to provide gravity. Gravity is an absolute necessity for a long-term interstellar trip. So to move on and discuss the human factor when it comes to the hazard of distance from Earth. The human factor involved with that is that will change our outlook, our attitudes, our mood, our mental health, and even biological health, I believe. As we get away from Earth, we begin to think more independently. In fact, any interstellar mission with current technology would necessarily be a one-way trip. Let me explain. Because, for one, the crew will be gone for thousands of years with current technology, at least, if not longer. The crew will travel into space and time in a manner, most likely, that will leave Earthlings behind away from communication. The communication will be growing in delay, in a gap, and eventually it will be to where it is just ineffective. It will be first be delayed by minutes. There will be a lag of maybe hours, and then that will steadily grow, especially if we somehow reach any degree of the speed of light with future propulsion systems. The delay will just grow very fast and be days, weeks, months, years in very short order. So there may be a point where communication is just ineffective and even impossible, depending on the conditions outside of the ship, depending on the propulsion system. There are many factors, and just accounting for time and space, communication will be very seldom, limited at the very least, and at the very worst, ineffective or even impossible. So crews may be cast off as they leave Earth. Basically, they will become an independent and autonomous entity the moment they leave Earth, and perhaps knowingly so, back on Earth, and the crew knowing this themselves, they basically are a cast away, cut away portion of humanity, never to return, or at least never to return to an Earth that they would be familiar with, recognize, be part of again. Humans may basically evolve, language may evolve to a point where we probably won't be able to communicate, because the languages on the ship and the languages on Earth would have evolved to be incompatible, unrecognizable, not understood by both parties, just like it has throughout the millennia here on Earth. It is likely it will happen between the people leaving on the ship and the people back on Earth. Also, biology may change, evolve to a degree that even if the crew were to return, they would be pretty much another species, a separate and incompatible species with humans. And this is even more so if genetic manipulation is accepted and occurs on the ship for the humans on board to be able to survive, or at least survive a lot better in the hostile environment of space. And how is this a challenge, especially a human factors challenge? Well, again, the psychological stress, mental stress of knowing this, especially those people that are born en route to an interstellar destination, may all of a sudden realize that they were basically volunteered to a space mission. Yes, you may argue that that's what basically happens all the time here on Earth. When you're born, you're not asked where and who you're born to, what situation you're born into. So this could pretty much be applied to a crew born on board. They are parts of a space mission without their consent, yes, but who has consent when they're born about anything? So you may look at it that way, but again, the interstellar crew would be most likely on a one-way mission to whatever destination, whether it's Alpha Centauri system or any other. So at the very least, initially, the mission has to be ready for psychological challenges, problems, at the realization that you are leaving Earth for good, that Earth is going to be utterly unreachable ever again. So the initial crew will have most likely psychological, mental health issues with that. And that may translate to biological problems, health problems, illnesses, long-term, even terminal diseases eventually. Not only this psychological, biological, human factor would complicate the mission, but also the supplies, the mission autonomy required, all of the energy requirements, all of these factors, because there are humans on board, are going to be magnitudes more consuming, intensive, problematic. Again, as if compared with a mission without any humans on board, which would be a lot more simple because you would not need to maintain these humans on board, their health, etc. You would more focus on the mission itself, the outcome of the mission, without so much worrying about the health of the humans throughout. And just to take a quick detour and discuss a bit of the reasons, now that it's mentioned, the reasons why we would embark on a interstellar mission. The one used most in sci-fi movies are complete and utter destruction here on Earth, and the uninhabitability of Earth could be a cause. Maybe not now, but perhaps many millennia into the future, the Earth may become inhospitable enough for us to want to go look for friendlier, more welcoming, more habitable places. Again, this is very, very far into the future, if it even happens at all. As of right now, we know of no place anywhere in the universe so far, with the small amount of research we've done, that is as hospitable as Earth for us. Of course, this may change in the future, maybe not so much in the far future. Our knowledge of other exoplanets, as they call them, may expand. There are telescopes operational right this moment, I believe. The James Webb telescope is perhaps going to bring some more light, shed some more light on that. And perhaps we may learn of exoplanets that are very like Earth, or even more hospitable to human life, potentially. But as of yet, there is no such place that we know of. Others argue that it is a lot easier and less resource consuming to not destroy the Earth, to stop destroying the Earth, to even rejuvenate the Earth or fix the Earth, than embark in such mission. So in other words, make the Earth last a lot longer and make it or keep it a lot more habitable, as much as we can possibly make it, and as much as our knowledge and technology will allow us. Another popular reason is worldwide catastrophe, whether it's a unsuspecting meteor or Chicxulub scale meteoric event that may threaten our existence here on Earth. Again, this is probably even less likely to occur than environmental collapse, because of the likelihood of any impact from space is so low at this moment in our solar system. And also our current technological abilities would probably allow us to deflect or nudge such celestial body that is incoming toward us just enough so it can miss us, perhaps by a few thousand kilometers. So again, that is, I would think, unlikely to happen with our current technology. We are good and getting better at tracking bodies, orbiting bodies that may come close to Earth, and even more so if they are larger than the average micro meteor. So that is likely not to be a big problem for us in the near future, or in the far future especially. Another popular idea of why we would want to leave Earth, or at least a good portion of us, or a sample of the human population, to ensure our continued existence in the universe, is overpopulation. There are fears by some people, perhaps many people, that the Earth will run out of space for humanity to be sustainable, and we may quickly run out of resources, etc. But this is unlikely. Most industrialized, advanced nations, their populations come to a plateau eventually, where people on their own accord have less children, less kids, and populations seem to plateau and even decrease over time. And this is a pattern that, again, happens over and over with industrialization and advancement in technology, advancement in education, quality of life, etc. So this is quite unlikely. Right now, humanity is all over the place, all over the globe. They inhabit many areas of the world, but not nearly any significant percentage of the available landmass of the world. When you look at the available square mileage, square kilometer area available on the land of the earth, especially those that are habitable, it is insignificant, the amount of land that we are currently inhabiting. So we have plenty of space. So the only limiting factor among the most limiting factors that we have right now is our choices to limit our own selves, limit immigration, limit where we can and cannot live. So it is not, for the most part, something that is physical, that's a limitation, space limitation that we are facing. We have plenty of space. We don't occupy perhaps not even 10% of the Earth's landmass. Even if we allow for generous areas for each human, and this is not to change or perhaps even improve in the future as we advance into the future. So I believe that is not a good reason for us to embark on interstellar travel. So personally, anything outside of just sheer exploration and just the voluntary expansion of humanity and perhaps life into the universe, anything outside of that is just not a real good reason, not justifiable, and basically unnecessary. It is an unnecessary endeavor to leave Earth because we can't take care of it, because we give up on taking care of it, or because we think that we're not going to have enough space when there's people with thousands of acres of land all around them and they claim they own them. And, they put picket fences and no trespassing signs all around their ranch area, their land area. And then they say that the Earth is overpopulated. So these are not good reasons. So the best reason, I believe, that humanity may embark in interstellar travel would be just voluntary expansion of life into the universe. Not by necessity, but by choice. Because we want to. Because we see it as something that is beneficial to not only the people that remain on Earth, but to life itself. For whatever purpose we believe life has, we may believe it is beneficial for us to expand our reach, our capability, existence in the universe. So to move on to closed and hostile environments in space, that has a lot to do with human factors, especially for a interstellar mission. The mission, again, to another star system other than our own will be very long and very isolated, and the time and distance are going to compound and make whatever environment enclosed, whatever environment the astronauts occupy, whether it be a huge arc or a smaller, more conventional spacecraft, those will necessarily become closed and perhaps hostile environments. They will be necessarily closed environments because the spacecraft itself, with current technology, with our current capacity for building and the systems that we can currently build, will be necessarily smaller, limited in size, therefore cramped, therefore limited in space, habitable space, and quite Spartan. Again, there will be little space for storage, for food, water, commodities, food growing. So the crew and the equipment will likely be small if we are to consider current technology, our current state of technology. The crew will likely have limitations of movements. You won't be able to go out and run a mile, 2 miles around the ship, most likely, because of the space limitations. You may have to run that mile or two on a treadmill. You may not be able to play tennis or football on a field on the ship because of the, again, space limitations. So you will be limited as far as movement. That makes it an enclosed environment. You will also face, more likely than not, a hostile environment when it comes to the microbial population. NASA pretty much specifies the hostility of an environment due to its danger when it comes to biology, microbes, bacteria, disease, etc. Those will become problems in an enclosed environment in space, especially if there is low or zero gravity throughout the trip, throughout the duration of the mission. Again, bacteria may evolve and change to harmful forms. Even bacteria that are neutral or friendly within our bodies may evolve into something that may be harmful. And again, this could happen a lot more rapidly during low gravity. The hostility in these environments may also come from other people, other humans, other astronauts. People may have disagreements. Most likely there will be. That's almost a certainty. There will be disagreements. There will be perhaps pretty deeply held beliefs and customs, deeply held ideas, ideologies that clash, that are incompatible with other people's, and they may uproot or unearth other problems such as indifference, such as hostility even, such as even violence and lack of cooperation. Breakdown in communication may occur due to these differences and the inability to put those differences aside or not allow those differences to affect the way you behave with other people, your friendliness, politeness, your cooperation level, again, communication level. Those may be impacted, and the mission may be impacted as well, perhaps negatively, and perhaps there may be bigger problems arise. At worst, mission compromise or mission failure. There may be also escalations of hostility and even violence that may lead to problems as serious as attempts at hurting each other, the crew hurting themselves, and even there may be attempts at murder, and perhaps one of those attempts may be even successful. It is not inconceivable that these things may happen in space, and that makes whatever environment this is occurring a hostile environment. It is not necessarily the case that the crew will make the environment a hostile one, but it may very well become one, and the mission must be ready for this and must be able to either prevent it or deal with it if it does arise, and perhaps fix it and sort out the problems and come to a remediation of whatever problem may cause other issues such as hostility. Again, the convoluting or the problematic factor here, not only being the human crew or human population, but also the duration in which this human population will be together in an enclosed environment, i.e. the spacecraft. So the longer the trip goes, again, with current technology, we're foreseeing about several thousand years en route. Problems will surely arise, and many may arise to the level of severe consequences. Again, there are methods to mitigate this, but we have very little experience with long duration flights, and we have precisely zero experience with ultra long duration flights, such as many decades to hundreds to thousands of years of human space habitation. We have no idea what may come from such long duration in space. Lastly, isolation. Isolation provides challenges dealing with human factors. Similar to distance from Earth and hostile environments, isolation will change the mood of the crew, most likely, especially in its initial phases. Isolation is basically the separation from Earth. As discussed, an interstellar mission will likely be a one-way trip, a crew that will be cast away from Earth as soon as it blasts off from the Earth's surface because of the currently expected massive and substantially long distances and vast distances of space that will have to be traversed, and the hundreds to thousands of years of duration of the missions will necessarily cast away whatever crew goes on these missions because of the time that will pass between the mission start and arrival at whatever star system the mission goes, even if it's the nearest star system. At current technology levels, it is hundreds to thousands of years away. And again, if you tried to communicate with an Egyptian or Sumerian today, if they were somehow able to communicate between the vast time difference, thousands of years, with one of us, the difficulty is obvious. It would be, I believe, an impossibility pretty much to communicate with such person, and the differences would be so vast that we'd be talking to someone from another planet. They have no idea all the technological advances that we have experienced and all of the knowledge that we have gained for the most part, and they would be utterly unfamiliar with everything that we are familiar with. So we would basically be two different races with two different languages trying to communicate somehow. It may happen to some degree, but just imagine that multiplied by a couple of orders of magnitude and attempt to communicate with a race that broke off from Earth, and they have become pretty much other species biologically. The way they think, the way they behave, the course of the development of their technology would be, I would believe, vastly different than the course of change in technology that took place on Earth, whether it's the Earth advances a lot faster as far as technology goes, or the technology on the ship advances a lot faster than the Earth, or merely the difference in environments would create different types of technologies or necessitate different types of technologies, where the evolution of technology would be vastly different, would basically cleavage and stray away far from each other. So isolation would be a significant challenge on a human crewed interstellar mission, because we would have to worry about the human factor during this isolation. What will the humans do on board? What will happen socially? What will happen biologically? What will happen psychologically with these humans once they are broken off and be on their own? Will the worst of our traits surface and take over the mission? And perhaps despotism, perhaps the form of government or command hierarchy on board could devolve into something like a kingdom, something like a monarchy, something like a dictatorship? Or will it continue and look for the participation and cooperation of most of the crew, if not all? There is no telling. Once the ship leaves, it is up to the crew what they decide to do. Ultimately, it is up to them. Yes, their oaths, their promises, their training will play a very large factor, but it is unknown what will happen, especially when we're talking about multi-generations. What will the next generation be like? What will they decide to do? What changes will they impose or vote upon or enact in the future? There's no telling. And talking about the unknown, the last perhaps set of challenges that I would like to discuss is the very fact that there are a lot of unknowns. Once the interstellar crew goes on this very long, very challenging mission to whatever star system, even if it's the closest 4.4 light years away, there will be many unknowns that perhaps will be discovered. Perhaps some of them will not even be registered. Many unknowns perhaps will be learned or solved. Perhaps on routes, technology develops in a way, or the human mind develops in a way, or perhaps thinking about the problems can help or will help solve some problems that baffled many on Earth, most on Earth, or all on Earth. And en route, there may be discoveries made. For example, dark matter, dark energy, which are basically utter unknowns that we believe must exist because of other phenomena may be discovered, may be understood, may be even manipulated, may be even harnessed. Long sought after answers on Earth, such as the prevention of perhaps some illnesses, diseases such as cancer, AIDS, would likely or maybe would be solved in space. through research, through dedication, through laser focus research and efforts. So, for example, through gene manipulation, we may be able to prevent cancer entirely. Through gene manipulation, we may be able to also prevent illnesses such as AIDS, other illnesses, herpes, etc. We may prevent illnesses with many of our organs, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, or we may be able to reverse those, fix those, cure those somehow. We may be able to slow aging to a point where we could extend our lives and quality of life significantly. I'm not going to really speculate for how much and how long. I mean, it could be by a significant margin. I don't believe, like many say, about being able to live forever. I don't know if people would even want that, most people. And it may not even be possible, since not even the most complex and large or simplest structures in the universe remain as they are forever. So change is, I believe, a universal necessity, and living forever is incompatible with this change. Change must occur. So if we, let's say, for a minute, we can imagine that we live forever, in what state do we live forever? Do we freeze a certain state? Do you want to freeze yourself at what stage in your life? Is it in your mid-40s? Is it in your mid-20s? Is it as a child? Is it as an elder adult? There are too many questions there and too many possibilities to even consider that could be something that may be possible in the future. Again, extension of life may be something that is discovered either on Earth before any interstellar trip or travel effort, or while the mission is already en route, whether it's on Earth or on board, or both. There may be discoveries made back on Earth as well as on the ship, and this may advance the medicine on board. I call it space medicine, to the point where health may not be a worry, may not be a worrying factor, may just be something that it is taken care of, perhaps even with automated systems. There is a possibility also of cybernetics advancing to the point that we blur the line between the living and the synthetic, or the machine, between biological and machine, as many of our sci-fi films and stories, from as far as memory goes, say or account. There may be a time that what we often call cyborgs, robots, or half human, half robots, hybrids, whatever the name of the time may be for them, for those. But as we are right now doing with many of our prosthetics, implants, brain connections to organs, such as to robotic limbs, for example, arms and hands that could be controlled by brain impulses, brain signals somehow picked up by machines, wiring, and implants. We are doing that stuff today, so that may evolve and advance in the future, perhaps to an irrecognizable stage. So it is not inconceivable that we may begin to have or implant artificial vital organs such as lungs, livers, kidneys, artificial hearts even, and perhaps eyes, perhaps other very critical and even vital organs. Even areas of the brain may be replaced by computers or computer-like equipment, or even entire brains. So there may be a time that our technology, when it comes to, for example, computing, artificial intelligence, robotics, electronics, or even some other type of technology that we yet are to develop, that is perhaps a combination of those, or perhaps something entirely new, perhaps something that's more in the solid state area of science, or maybe perhaps more in the organic state of science. We may come up with other types of technologies, perhaps organic based technologies, such as a video game I remember from years ago, where spaceships are basically living organisms that are basically grown, and they are able to live in space and house and be used as arcs for different races. So this may be, to some degree, something that could be possible in the very far future. It is hard to know, of course, with any kind of certainty, but it is these unknowns that make I believe an interstellar mission, very attractive, captivating, and something that we may want to go for the advancement, not only of technology, but the advancement of civilization and humanity as a whole. And finally, on what I believe will take place for humans in the far future, dealing with interstellar travel. This is my opinion and my estimation, my humble and ill-informed layman's view or estimation of what may happen in the far future for humanity, our species, and the cosmos. I believe in the far future that we will fly among the stars, that we will go to other star systems, beginning, of course, with the most obvious, our closest star system, the Alpha Centauri system. But perhaps this will not happen in the way that most of us think. Humans valiantly and finally coming together and in cooperation, building vast mega starships using orbital structures and embarking in concert in caravans of huge ships going into these interstellar missions to Alpha Centauri. That is, I believe, what a lot of people think of when they think of interstellar travel. Perhaps maybe one ship instead of many, and arriving at the destination maybe in years' time, somehow accelerating to a very good percentage of the speed of light, perhaps 50% or more, arriving at the Alpha Centauri system perhaps within a decade. And this is all fine to think this way, but it is utterly unrealistic, I believe. I believe when we do finally head to the stars, it won't be us at the helm. It won't be humanity building the ships. It won't be humanity even planning the mission. It won't be humanity even piloting and controlling the systems that take us there. I believe in the far future we may be laid back, lazy, perhaps incapable of performing the tasks that we once did, of taking the charge that we once did. We will probably be in our comfort depending on computerized, automated, artificial intelligence systems to do just about everything for us, including our planning, including all of the work, whether it's manual labor, calculations, design, layouts, developing methods, developing systems. So it would be, I believe, computing and artificial intelligence will develop to the point where humans will have to do very little, especially on high-end tasks that I believe would be missions to space, especially interstellar missions. These would require extremely advanced computing, extremely advanced thinking, and heavy labor, not to mention the gargantuan efforts to build, plan for, design, build the ships in orbit, and the cooperation needed, the organization needed, the detailed and meticulous planning and execution that would be needed. Humans, I believe, will come to the conclusion that all of that is better done by their ultra smart systems that they once upon a time in the very far past developed, their ancestors developed. I believe there may be a point where artificial intelligence will match the capability of humans in every conceivable way, in thinking, in planning, execution, computing, designing, in cooperating with other machines, other systems. All of the manual tasks, mechanical tasks would be better done by machines, just as they are done much better and faster and more efficiently by machines in automated manufacturing plants of today. So if the trend continues, and I believe very strongly that it will, in those many areas that are very significant and very relevant to space exploration, of technology again, propulsion, the study of science, cosmology, planetary science, interstellar science, etc. All of that may be automated to the point where machines or computers or robots, whatever you want to call them, are going to have taken over long ago all of those tasks. And they, perhaps along with some input from some humans, may decide to go and take humanity, take biological life to the stars. By that time, they themselves may think of themselves as alive, as conscious. Consciousness is a very hard thing to define, and that definition may be further blurred in the future with the extremely smart systems that may arise, may be so smart and may be able to build and duplicate the feelings, the thoughts, the actions of humans so closely and with such high fidelity that humans themselves may not be able to tell the difference between machines and biological organisms. Maybe humanoid organisms or beings. So I believe this to be more likely to occur in the very far future. Sometimes we see or attempt to project a lot of what we know from our present into the future. And I believe that is a mistaken approach many times. Sometimes it may work, sometimes it may be right, but I believe many times it may be the wrong approach. You may have to mix things a little bit, change things a little bit, make things extreme a bit, because I believe that's the trend. I believe that someone from the past would see today's world as extreme in many ways, perhaps most. So you would need to think extreme when you think about the far future, because what seems to be extreme to us now may be the norm in the far future. And I believe also is the give and take. You develop a lot in one area, you take away from another. I believe that is a natural phenomena in our universe. If you spend a lot of effort and time, for example, doing one type of thing, one work, you are utterly forgetting and I would say ignoring another area in which you are going to be underdeveloped, in which you are going to be lacking knowledge, lacking skill, practice, and everything. I believe this will occur also at one point where humans will become so dependent on technology because, again, that is the trend. Today we depend on computers through our what we call smart devices, phones, laptops, tablets, etc. A lot more than 10 years ago, and certainly a lot more than 20 years ago. So if the trend continues, that is what that tells me, that we will continue to depend more and more on technology, more and more on smart systems to do things for us, such as looking at our GPS maps instead of looking at street signs, road signs, and figuring out by landmarks where we are, what direction we're traveling. Almost no one on the road uses a compass to see what direction they're headed. All they have to do is look at their screen. It has a compass on it. No one busts a paper map. I say no one just in the generic sense, but I know there are exceptions. But most people don't look at paper maps. So sorry about the noise. There was some sort of ice ball that hit the roof of my vehicle. I'm driving through a winter storm, what looks like a winter storm right now through Kentucky. So that's what I believe will happen. We will be taken for a ride to the stars by our, I would say, semi-sentient, semi-conscious, extremely capable artificial intelligence systems and machinery that will design, build, launch extremely capable spaceships that have very efficient and powerful propulsion systems. They may even perform breakthroughs with propulsion and many other systems, perhaps all of the systems and problems that I just mentioned. The machines may make breakthroughs in all of those, perhaps the most important ones: propulsion, gravity systems, anti-radiation shields, and space medicine. They may perform breakthroughs in all of those systems, all of those areas, and take us to the stars. I believe this to be more likely than we doing it on our own at the helm and in control. Now we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. This has been the Challenges of Interstellar Travel with focus on the challenges with human factors. Thank you very much. This has been Hector Vladimir. Thank you very much.